Did you ever drive by a house that was run down, ill-kept, and grubby, and instinctively know that you had no desire to either meet or become friends with the people that lived therein? Have you ever met a person who was so physically repulsive because of poor health, grooming, or dressing habits that you felt similarly inclined not to make his acquaintance? I'm sure we all have. The analogy is simple. In both cases, we looked at the two homes and rejected the owners of each. It is a cliché that we learn in childhood, but no less true because of it. Our body is our home, to a very real and direct extent. The manner in which we care for our bodies is as much a reflection of our sense of self-worth, likableness, and value to others than the frequency with which we cut our grass and trim our hedges. Our outside mini-environment deals directly with that home in which we spend our time during our tenure on this earth. Our outside mini-environment is a function of three component parts: our general condition of health, our grooming and hygiene, and our attire. To carry the analogy even further, consider your general condition of health to be the structure of your house. It is a combination of 2x4s, support beams, drywall, and insulation. Most of us have too much insulation and too few 2x4s. But most of us rationalize away our unfitness or ill health by saying, "I'm content. I'm happy." Yet, to the extent that ill health or general lack of fitness negatively influences our other mini-environments, it detracts from our efforts to reach our full potential as human beings. When we speak of fitness, we don't necessarily speak of being able to run a 4-minute mile, or being able to lift the equivalent of our weight in barbells. What we do speak of is a general condition of health that permits us to live life to the fullest, without undue fatigue, disease, and discomfort. At the very least, being unfit negatively influences our conduct in all the other areas of our life. From our conduct at work and at home, and our ability to maintain a coherent mental existence, right down to our ability to enjoy our sex life to the fullest. At the very worst, unfitness kills us. The house comes tumbling down. Lord knows, pardon the pun, what waits for us in the hereafter. But one thing is for sure about death. It is very permanent. The great speaker Cabot Robert points out that there is none among us who would not someday willingly give up all they own for a few more of those irreplaceable fragments of eternity we call life. Our grooming and hygiene might be likened to the time we spend cutting the grass and taking the garbage out at home. Such acts, however minor, are generally a good indication of the pride we take in ourselves. Finally, our attire can be likened to the manner in which we maintain the exterior of our house. What type of shingles should we use? What color for the shutters? Shall we paint the old barn or spiff it up with aluminum siding? Again, we've all passed homes where the owners had made an obvious, sincere attempt to dress the place up, and the attempt was a dismal failure. Houses painted blue are a good example. If the owner selects just the right shade of pale blue and accents it with just the right combination of dark blue shutters and downspouts, the results can be strikingly beautiful. But select just a slightly different shade of blue, and the effect can best be described as early tacky. Put a man in a 3-piece pinstripe suit with club tie, and he may look like a Wall Street banker. But if the pinstripes are just 1/8 of an inch too far apart, or too wide, or if the tie is not quite right, you have converted that Wall Street banker into a hitman from Poughkeepsie. Similarly, put a businesswoman in a well-tailored skirted suit with subtle accessories, and she is dressed for the board room. Replace that outfit with a flattering dress and a neckline that plunges just a 1/2 inch too low, and your female executive is dressed for the bedroom. It all adds up. the manner in which we care for and present that house in which we live will have a profound effect on our success in other areas of life as well. As with the other many environments, we are again totally responsible for the results we obtain in the outside area of our life. It sounds especially ludicrous to blame someone else because they feed us too much, or buy us the wrong clothes, or forget to buy our deodorant. Most of us, within the first few days of our existence, learned how much food was necessary to sustain our bodies. By age 4 or 5, we were competent at dressing ourselves. By age 8, we could part our hair without leaving a cowlick with some consistency. Presumably, everyone listening to this program is an adult or pretty close to it. As such, excuses that it's someone else's fault that you are too fat, or too skinny, or too dirty, or dressed like a schmutz won't find much sympathy here. As always, you're responsible. You're in charge. Please pick up your tape recorder and walk over to a mirror where you can get a good look at yourself. Go ahead, I'll wait. Are you at the mirror? Good. Take a look. Take a long look at that person standing there. Admittedly, you may not be dressed for business just now. But what about the rest of you? How's that double chin coming along? Looking good? When was the last time you washed and or set your hair? How carefully did you shave this morning? Or did you shave at all? Now, if you're someplace where you won't get arrested for doing so, take off your clothes. Go ahead. I won't look. Got your clothes off? Good. Fellows, go ahead and flex those biceps. Go ahead. Oh, you did? Sorry. Ladies, how are those busts coming along? Pointing a little more toward your toes than they used to, eh? Now let's examine the waistline. Ah, splendid. So that's what happened to those cheesecake desserts. Now turn around and take a look at the real you, the part you sit on. A little wider than you remember at last, eh? Depressing? Hopefully at least a little. A little divine discontent helps promote change. Almost all of us have at least some part of us that we could improve physically, whether it's weight control or exercise that is needed. Almost all of us need something. Now go ahead and get dressed in the clothes you would normally wear to work. Just leave me and the recorder here by the mirror, and I'll meet you when you get back. Are you back? Good. All dressed? Splendid. Now take another look in that mirror. How are you dressed? Do you look the image you want to project? The ESP of business and sales stands for enthusiasm, sincerity, and professionalism. Does your outfit say, I'm enthusiastic, sincere, and professional? Does your physical demeanor say those things? Does your grooming say those things? Does anything about you say any one of those things? I hope so. Now, take a last long look in that mirror. Where can you improve? How can you improve? Start the wheels turning now. We'll spend a lot of time later discussing techniques that will project the real outside you. But in the meantime, ask yourself this question. Based solely on how I look, based solely on that image in the mirror, and if I were a potential customer or client of mine, would I want to deal with me? We communicate on many different levels, you and I. Verbally, for sure, as we are doing now, or through the written word. But most important of all, we communicate silently through our demeanor, our attire, and our hygiene. We send thousands of messages every day to the people around us without uttering a word. We do so by presenting a silent image, whether in the form of gestures or through more inert characteristics such as grooming and health. We may not always make that big sale or land that big client with our first impression, but we can almost surely lose it or him before ever uttering a word, simply by silently communicating the signal that we are not the enthusiastic, sincere, and professional person with whom that individual wants to deal. Long before a speaker ever opens his mouth, for example, he makes his first and most profound impression upon the audience as he approaches the rostrum or microphone. He does so silently and, without giving any indication of what he will say verbally, he transmits his nonverbal message to the group. Hopefully, it will be a message of enthusiasm, sincerity, and professionalism. The old adage that a picture is worth 1,000 words holds true in the vast majority of instances. We paint pictures of ourselves for the world. We paint the picture. We can decide what strokes to use, what hues and shades we will employ. We can prepare the canvas and ultimately find a suitable frame. We are the artist and the subject in one. We can present our work haphazardly to an uncaring or negatively impressed audience, or we can present a masterpiece of silent communication to be met with an appreciative response. All this only we and we alone can do, for again, we are responsible. We control the outside mini environment in which we live. So far, we have devoted ourselves to examining the two mini-environments which are inherent to our status as organisms or living beings. That we have thought patterns in a house in which we live does not distinguish us much from any other species which exists on this earth. It is a question of degree, not of kind. But our other two mini-environments, home and work, relate to our communal tendency as human beings, whereas the inside and outside mini-environments deal with the manner in which we relate to and maintain ourselves. Our home and work mini-environments deal with the manner in which we relate to others. So let's examine the communal us. The best place to start is at home. Our home mini-environment can be defined a lot of ways. Whether we're married or have children or not, it's where we're, well, home. Whether we are physically there or not. It is a sense of origin, of order, a nest where we enjoy being most, surrounded by people we enjoy being with most. Our spouse, our children, our parents, our friends. Our home mini-environment is usually a series of warm and caring and loving relationships centered around a physical place, home. It is, or at least should be, the one environment of our existence that we create exclusively for the purpose of loving others and being loved. We manifest the love we experience in this environment of our lives by displaying, in various degrees and at various times, 6 separate qualities: warmth, respect, encouragement, sex, affection, and caring. Obviously, not all of these qualities are applicable to all of our home mini-environment relationships, but they are the techniques we use to display the love we feel at home, and they are the 6 methods by which we maintain a happy domestic existence. While we don't have to be married to have a home mini-environment, marriage provides the clearest example. Most of us get married because we feel, either instinctively or socially, that it provides the most useful context in which we may express our love for one another. A great human tragedy is that, although we may erect this external environment for the purpose of expressing our love, we too frequently construct internal barriers within it which tend to defeat our purpose for having used the institution at all. Moreover, if love is, as the philosophers say, non-competitive, then surely it cannot flourish in a competitive or insecure environment. Yet, too frequently, we permit competition or insecurity to permeate the inner domestic sanctum that we have constructed. We permit others and other factors to destroy our home mini-environment. To complicate matters, our home mini-environment does not lend itself to the same types of goals that we might easily establish in the other mini-environments of our lives. At work, for example, we might postpone immediate gratification or happiness in an effort to accomplish some future distant goal. Yet, there is no distance to the goals relating to our home mini-environment. For no matter how they are put, priorized, or pronounced, home-related goals always amount to the same thing: the present enjoyment of love now. In any home mini-environment involving two people, as in marriage, there are actually three people involved: you, me, and us. You may feel warm and caring and loving. Me may feel warm and caring and loving. But if you and me cannot relate those feelings to each other in the context of the home environment we have attempted to create, then us will be in very bad shape indeed. We'll establish then as a realistic and attainable goal for our home mini-environment the present enjoyment of love now. In later portions of this cassette program, we will explore the utilization of the 6 separate qualities: warmth, respect, encouragement, sex, affection, and caring, as tools for the accomplishment of that goal. Too many of us regard life as a monopoly game with no go. We spend our time trying to get from Boardwalk to Baltic without stopping to collect our $200 and without resting on the only place on the board where it is completely safe. Our home mini-environment is our go. It's where we pass time between rolls of the dice. It's where we catch our breath safe from all competition and insecurity around us. Yet too often we get so wrapped up in the game itself we spend little or no time at our go. Ironically, the purpose of the game, at least in part, is to spend time there safely. In life, we certainly start out hoping that through our efforts at work we will have additional time and additional income to share with those people we love most. In practice, we frequently permit the work-related goals that we established initially as a tool for happiness at home to intrude upon our relationship with the people we love most. While we can't pretend that business or professional problems don't exist, and while most of us must devote a substantial portion of each day to the solution of those problems, nevertheless, our home mini-environment must be built, preserved, and protected against intrusions from all sources. Too many people regard security as a dirty word. I suppose that a search for security is less than admirable when that word entails sacrificing lifetime goals in exchange for, say, a small yet secure pension, or sacrificing making a serious contribution within a corporate hierarchy for fear of losing a small but secure position. Yet security at home is another matter entirely. If we had to select one synonym for the phrase home mini-environment, that synonym would be security. Home is and should be our inner domestic sanctum, our walled and moated castle, that one environment where we can go and relax and enjoy those we love, unaffected by the world around us. Yet, despite the close relationship between security and our home mini-environment, many of us fail to establish the security needed for the maintenance of that environment. Immature and unrealistic financial expectations are the primary culprit. Someday, somewhere, somebody's going to get smart and insist that every young man and woman in high school in this country be required to take and pass a course on personal financial management. In the vast majority of troubled homes, the culprit is money. More specifically, it is the inability of one or both partners to deal maturely with money. We establish our home environment to provide a secure context in which we may express our love and enjoy our happiness. Then we go out and finance a stereo we can't afford, a TV we can't afford, a car we can't afford, a house we can't afford, and a dozen other items that we persuaded ourselves were complete necessities. Then we sit around and spend the time we should be spending thinking about each other, thinking instead about our payments. And we just can't seem to understand why we're not as happy or as secure as we intended to be. Financial maturity is measured by the ability of a person to distinguish between his ability to finance something and his ability to afford something. Financial maturity, in most instances, equals security. Security, in many instances, equals a happy home environment. It is one of the greatest ironies and tragedies of our time that individuals who, upon marriage, will uniformly contend that the most important thing to them is that they have each other, will, once married, proceed to finance the purchase of anything that's not nailed down, thus frequently destroying the relationship they intended to create in the first place. Don't get me wrong. I like money. It is, by and large, a whole lot better to have it than not to have it. As the poem goes, I love the simple things in life, come rainy day or sunny, a crust of bread, a sip of wine, a rocking chair, and money. But no matter who we are or what we do, we all want to be greater than we are and do better than we do. And there isn't a man or woman listening to this cassette who doesn't feel that way, because feeling that way is a part of being alive. We all dream dreams and hope hopes and desire to grow, because we all know, no matter what our age or sex or station in life, when you cease to grow, you start to go. But it's changing those dreams into reality, those hopes into accomplishments, those visions into destiny, that's the hard part. We all, each of us, day after day, week after week, month after month, find ourselves so bogged down in routine activities, just getting through the day. We never seem to have the time to spend on those projects that mean the most to us, on those projects that will help us reach our full potential as human beings. And we wind up letting things happen to us instead of us happening to things. That's the problem we bring with us to work. We don't just work for money, although it's important, darned important. To a very large extent, I think we work because deep down inside there is a part of us that is a child looking around and saying, gosh, it's pretty neat that I can go out there with the rest of the adults and do things that make a difference and help people. There is no denying, as the Judeo-Christian ethic provides, that there is an inherent satisfaction to work, a feeling of constructiveness, of accomplishment. Yet, too often, we satisfy ourselves with the illusion of accomplishment rather than the reality, and we confuse motion with progress. Our work mini environment is best defined as that area of our lives where we spend our time in pursuit of economic and professional goals. While just being able to participate is and should be a matter of great satisfaction for us all, it is rarely enough. Instead, we establish work-related goals, weekly goals, monthly goals, and career goals, and devote our energies toward their accomplishment. For most of us, the betterment of our work environment involves not just being employed, but also involves being in a position where we can use our potential to the fullest and reap the considerable rewards thereof. So we show up for work, seated at the wheel of that machine we call ourselves, and wait for a voice to announce, Ladies and gentlemen, start your engines. Frequently, however, especially in the professions and in commission sales work, no voice is forthcoming. We sit at the starting line, our ignition not even on, and watch others who didn't wait for permission to start lap us. It's as though we frequently wait for a special license to succeed. We assume mediocrity is permissible without someone else's permission, but excellence requires expressed approval. So there we sit at the starting line, waiting for someone to tell us it's okay to compete. Frequently, about halfway through the race, say middle age, many of us realize, hey, I don't need permission to compete. I can step on it any time I want. Whereupon they enter the race at a considerable disadvantage. Yet, even with that disadvantage, entering late is far better than not entering at all. We've all met many people who spend their entire lives at work with their engines on, at best, idle, who simply never understood that at no time did they ever require someone else's permission to get into the race. When cars were first invented, Model Ts were pretty hot stuff. But today one would look quaint, almost sad, sitting next to a Formula One. In our race at work, many of us undeliberately, and for a multitude of reasons, frequently drive Model Ts rather than faster, more competitive models. We do so for a number of reasons. There are, of course, those individuals who never fully acquired the technical skills necessary for excellence at their profession. They hem and haw at the suggestion that they pursue continuing education, knowing deep down inside there may be little value to continuing an education which never really began. More frequently, however, those of us who drive Model Ts at work do so because, while the attitudinal vehicle we started with may have been a racy late model at the time, it's grown obsolete over the years. Techniques change, products change, services change. Client and customer demands change. And only those who are willing to change with them will remain even remotely competitive. The result is what we frequently see. Old-timers and young-timers alike, who latched on to what were a few good ideas when they began, who persist in employing those methods today, undeterred by all the progress around them. Our success at work, just as the success of a race car driver, must ultimately depend upon our willingness to adapt later models, or, at the very least, to tune the engine of the attitudinal vehicle we have selected. Replacing old equipment with new, or at least fine-tuning the equipment we already have, is the major focus of the case approach as it relates to our work mini-environment. In our work mini-environment, it is perhaps more tempting than anywhere else to blame others for our lack of success. But again, we are faced with the ultimate realization that if others control our degree of success at work, it is only because, at some earlier point, we permitted them to do so. Hence, the responsibility for our successes and failures circles back to return where it ought to be, with us. It's in our hands. We have made much of the notion that we cannot concentrate exclusively upon one mini-environment if we are to attain any appreciable measure of ultimate success. We have mentioned, too, that our total success environment is larger than its parts in the sense that each mini-environment positively or negatively reinforces the others. We've emphasized time and again that we are each individually responsible for the results we obtain in all four mini-environments. And we have examined in some detail the basic component parts of each mini-environment. With all this in mind, we can now mathematically evaluate the current status of our personal success environment by applying the case formula to ourselves. The formula can be lightly regarded as a mere parlor game, or it can be utilized as an important tool for measuring the extent to which you personally have realized your full potential as a human being. I hope for you it will be the latter. We already have enough parlor games in the language of success. Okay, whiz kids, whip out your pocket calculators. Here comes everything you wanted to know and more about that guy in the mirror.